Welcome to Travel with Danny and MJ.
I'm Mary Jane.
And I'm Danny. We're traveling the world with just carry-ons and a backpack each.
Visit the Epic Museum, which is the Irish Immigration Museum, and we're going to do hopefully, some research about my Irish heritage. Particularly, we're looking for information on my maternal grandfather, who was difficult to track any information on. So we just finished the consultation at the Irish Family Heritage Center to try and find more information. I was particularly interested in my grandfather, my mother's father, James Lennon, but like I have found, he's very difficult to track any information on. But we're able to find a lot of information on my maternal grandmother's side, going back a few generations. So that was successful, and we've connected to where they were in Ireland. We found out the family was from County Limerick, and we're going to continue to explore and research. Right now we're going to go into the museum, the Epic Irish Immigration Museum. We have entered the Epic Museum. It says, "We all come from somewhere." So we walk through the Epic Museum. There's an audio guide, but there's also audio aspects to the journey. They give us a passport, which is a guide to the museum, and then you stamp your passport at these little kiosks along the way. And this section is a sculpture that shows all of the different kinds of vessels that Irish people traveled on. We learned about 6 different immigrants who left Ireland at different times in the 1800s, 1900s, and then we learn in this part how it turned out for each of them. This section is about people who left Ireland not to escape hardship or famine, but to go and help doctors, social workers, priests, missionaries, educators. This room is about land and loss of land and need for land and why people left and the kinds of jobs they went to as they left and what kind of resistance they were met in the new countries in terms of things like no Irish need apply. So in this room, it's all about Irish contributions to the militaries of the countries they went to. This room is about laws and all kinds of things that oppressed people and caused them to leave as well. These next few rooms celebrate the contributions that the Irish have made in these other countries that they've emigrated to, and all kinds of actors, athletes, politicians, world leaders, scientists, literature, all different contributions that they've made. The galleries are athletes who excelled around the world with Irish heritage, Irish sports being played around the world like hurling, Gaelic football, and others, and how they're going. Science and inventions, so great Irish scientists or Irish heritage and inventors, world leaders, politicians, Irish Americans or Irish descent, American presidents, Kennedy, Biden, Obama with Irish heritage, and then finally the room about notorious Irish heritage folks like, we've come to the couple of sections that are really about Irish music and how that has led to Irish culture, the influence it's had on things like bluegrass. Irish dancing has led to the creation of tap dancing. There's musicians throughout the world, famous performers, vaudeville, variety, publishers of music, songwriters, contemporary artists with Irish heritage. Boy George, Bruce Springsteen, Mariah Carey, The Smiths, three of the Beatles, John, Paul, and George are of Irish descent, Rihanna, and this section is about river dance. So a video displaying it, as well as, if you want to try, there are footsteps on the floor to give it a go. As many of you know, I am rhythm impaired and I'm not going. This section is about eating and drinking in Ireland. Typical Irish pub. This gallery is about Irish diaspora artists and designers. These next two rooms are about Irish storytelling. So C.S. Lewis, many others, right? Oscar Wilde, W.B. Yeats, and then the following room is about literature, and then four kind of little booths to learn about Irish and comedy and cinema and theater and broadcast. This room is about how the Irish celebrate around the world. How so many places celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and how the many iconic things like Christ the Redeemer, the Sacre-Cœur, and the Colosseum in Rome will go green. Finished our tour of the Epic Museum. It's really a worthwhile visit. Super interactive, very engaging, taking you through the history of Irish emigration. We're visiting Kilmainham Prison here on the outskirts of Dublin, and it's according to TripAdvisor, the number one thing to do in Dublin as far as attractions go. One thing important to note is that you have to make a reservation or a time slot. You can't just go into like some museums. You have to have a tour of the grounds, and then there's a museum you can walk around at the end of the tour. So the prison was used mostly for petty criminals for really hundreds of years, but it became really famous for imprisoning Irish rebels against the Crown of England. There were four major rebellions through the years, from the 1700s all the way up to the 1916 rebellion. All of those rebellions were unsuccessful, but the 1916 rebellion, because of the harsh retribution that the British took on the Irish rebels, really created a groundswell of support amongst the Irish people, and led to the War of Independence in the early 1920s, and also followed on by the Irish Civil War between those who supported a treaty with Britain for kind of partial autonomy and those who wanted to be completely independent. The prison was finally closed in the mid-1920s and fell into disrepair, and then was restored in the 1960s, and was really a tremendous thing to visit. I really recommend it. Courtroom built part of the jail.
Very welcome to Kilmainham. My name is Robert, going to be your tour guide there for the next hour or so.
This was a later addition to the prison, and many of the people from the 1916 rebellion were kept here. including a future president of Ireland. This is the exercise yard in the jail.
Do you drive on the which side of the road?
This was the work yard, but also where executions were done, including one very infamous one of James Connolly, who was brought here already dying and tied to a chair so that they could execute him by firing squad. All the rest of the rebels were executed at the other end. This is the old entrance, the original entrance to the prison, with dragons representing evil contained because they're chained. There's also in the balcony above is where public executions would have until they were stopped in 1860. So scaffolding would be erected. People would gather outside the gates to watch the public executions. Go do a tour of Dublin Castle. As our tour guide told us, there's not much of the old castle left. Part of it burned down, part has been destroyed over the years. We're on the tour of the Dublin Castle. We just heard about an escape from here by some prisoners that were kept up in the tower, and also that Bram Stoker worked in the government building here as kind of a clerk. In the years before, he wrote Dracula. This is the Royal Chapel in Dublin Castle. And this is the Hall of St. Patrick's, which is really where, most important events happen. So every, I think it's 7 years, the President of Ireland is sworn into office in this room. I also had many dignitaries. John F. Kennedy was here, Queen Elizabeth was here, Joe Biden was here a couple of years ago, Nelson Mandela. So this is where they host any kind of important dignitary. This is the courtyard of Dublin Castle. This is the portrait gallery. Basically portraits of all the different viceroys who were basically the governors sent here from England to rule over Ireland. This is the throne room where really British monarchy would come when they visit. They would sit here. Queen Victoria sat in this chair. This is the state drawing room where the viceroys and other dignitaries would have entertained their guests. So these are portraits or drawings on the 7 leaders of the 1960 rebellion who were executed afterwards. And this is particularly called the James Connolly room. This is, I suppose, where he was nursed back to somewhat level of health so he could be executed. His execution of basically a dying man, great outrage, and really led to the proper Irish Revolution and war for independence. What they call the battle axe staircase. A lot of art around the staircase, and a kind of small statue of Michael Collins, who really led to the treaty that made Ireland independent from England, but also led to the Irish Civil War because some people didn't feel they were independent enough. Going to the Irish National Museum of Decorative Arts and History. This display shows a very old hurley and hurling ball made of hair, at least 200 years old. Japanese officer's sword from World War II, model of a ancient sailing and rowing ship from fine china from Limerick. ceramic figurines, very old ankle boots, fine Irish silver furniture, really from the 17th to the 19th centuries. A fashion retrospective. All of these fashionable outfits through the years. Seems pretty contemporary. 20th century stuff. We have a whole exhibit on the Gaelic Athletic Association, which is the largest amateur sports organization in the world. It was founded in 1884. Examples of Irish country furniture. The other side of the museum is about history, particularly military history. And as soon as we walked in, what do we see hanging proudly? The Morans, or Morans as we say. And they have a map showing the terrain and what they're suitable for, whether it's suitable for cavalry or infantry. Another map drawn by the British in 1558, talking about major features like mountains, rivers, bogs. Really important information for armies. This was an ancient Irish tribal throne that the British snatched to show that the old ways were over when they got here. This cannon came from the Spanish Armada that in 1588 tried to attack England, in Spain's war against England, but they met foul weather, that armada, and some things ended up washing ashore in Ireland. The Irish immigrants' participation in the U.S. Civil War. And here we got quite a bit of big stuff. Military plane. Now we're into World War I. And then what they're calling the Irish Wars. So the War of Independence from 1919 to 21, and then the Irish Civil War in 22 and 23, where the Irish people were motivated by the treatment of the rebels from the Easter Rebellion in 1916 and galvanized the Irish people, who then fought for their independence, won partial independence through a treaty, but not everyone agreed with that, which led to a civil war between the supporters of the treaty and the non-supporters of the treaty. In the end, the supporters of the treaty won out and were also treated the anti-treaty folks very badly as well. So not the most shining moment in Irish history. So this is a model of a French ship that tried to land in 1796, just in front of the 1798 rebellion, to support it, but they ran into some terrible weather, and most of the crew was lost, and that kind of doomed an already kind of poorly organized rebellion. Through most of the wars of the 20th century, Ireland has been officially neutral. Many of their citizens have joined one side or the other. The Irish government, as I understand, was sympathetic to the Germans in World War II, mostly because they were against the British, and the Irish would pretty much always take the non-British side in these things. So some unfortunate choices, perhaps. Did the Museum of Decorative Arts and History. Probably could have used a little bit of extra time in there, but it's worth a visit.
Thanks for traveling with Danny and MJ. We look forward to seeing you on our next adventure.